Today, Footballers' Lives.
Footballers' Lives.
So our guest today on Footballers' Lives is a Scotsman with Polish heritage, a tough tackling defender with a shock of ginger hair that wouldn't be out of place in Braveheart. He started his career with the Hamilton Accies, has played for Partick Thistle, Jagiellonia Białystok, I hope I said that correctly, Pogoń Siedlce, Hamilton Accies again, and now the Central Coast Mariners. That's a bit easier to say. It is a pleasure to welcome the Mariners medal winner for 2019-20, Mr. Ziggy Gordon. How are you, Ziggy?
Very well, thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here with you all.
Great to have you on the show. Let's start with the obvious one. But where does the name Ziggy, or Zygmunt, to give you your full first name, come from?
It's the Polish background on my mother's side. So my name is officially Zygmunt, but I don't dare anyone to call me that. Ziggy will suffice fine.
Okay, well, mate, just to let you know, you're AKA Flash from the start of this show.
Flash Gordon.
That's Maury's nickname for you. That part of your heritage is obviously pretty important to you. We'll get on to talk about why you went to Poland in a while. But I also wanted to ask you something about something people might not know here. You're very close in some strange but non-blood related way to Stuart McGill, the Aussie cricketer. What on earth is all that about?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I didn't really know Stu too well until I came over to Australia. A family that it's almost like my second family in Scotland. They are blood related to Stu. They got in contact with him and said, look, our friend Ziggy, he's like a son to us. He's over in Australia. Make sure he feels welcome. Next thing I know, I got a message on Twitter from Stu McGill. And I'm sorry, Stu, if you're listening. I didn't know a clue who you were. Okay? You might be a big deal here, but back in Scotland, we don't have a clue. We don't even know how to spell cricket.
Mate, Ziggy, he couldn't get a trial at Mariners. Everyone else seemed to be able to get a trial at some stage. Hey, Stu McGill, Usain Bolt. Hey.
You can have a guest appearance for sure.
Oh, my God.
Tell us a story that you heard about Usain Bolt, Ziggy.
So, obviously he's came here, a lot of enthusiasm. He's trying to win a contract, so he's training. We're playing five-a-sides, and Mikey McGlinchey's got the ball. He goes past the goalkeeper and past the Usain for a simple finish, and he goes to his right foot and he mucks up. He takes a touch and he falls over, and then everyone's going, Usain, put the ball in the goal. He said, Mikey. It's the worst Jamaican accent ever. So I'll just, Mikey. No, I don't play with my right foot. Only left foot. Only past the left.
Oh, my God.
You couldn't be more juxtaposed to Jamaican, Ziggy. I think that's pretty obvious.
I didn't want to give him.
Yeah. You were also, I think this has been pretty well documented, you were a junior national chess champion. So brains as well as brawn. How did you get into that as a kid? Yeah,
brains and brawn. Unfortunately, not handsome enough to have all three. But I don't know. It's one of those things. I tried to, have fingers in many different pies, and it's one of those things. My dad taught me. I seemed to be quite good at it. Went to tournaments, seemed to be better than most at it. Then all of a sudden, I was in, a Scottish Championship match, and I managed to win about 13. And then football took over because the tournaments and the games were on the same day, and there was only one avenue I was going under. One was more popular than the other, and I was getting to that age when I was looking for a girlfriend.
Who's your chess idol? Garry Kasparov or?
I think Bobby Fischer.
Right. That means nothing to me.
You've lost me as well.
All right, let's talk about football, shall we? As we mentioned, you started in the Scottish Premier League with Hamilton Accies. Do you remember your debut against St Johnstone at McDermott Park?
I remember very well for more reasons than one. So I was a substitute in that game. Well, supposedly substitute. And one of the centre-backs, David Elbert, actually gets injured 5 minutes before kickoff. I don't know what he's done, but I was already in the dressing room, and I just got pulled in by the manager at the time, Billy Reid, and said, "You're playing." And I didn't have time to really process it or think about it or get nervous. I just remember putting the strip on, and I was out walking out to the pitch, and we lost 2-0 that day. But personally, I played really well, and I think it actually worked out that I didn't know too much about it.
And you got promoted in season 13-14, but I think you beat Morton 10-2 on the final day of the season. So you're up in the Scottish Premier League. You go into places like Pittodrie and Celtic Park, and in your first season in the top flight, Hamilton went to Celtic Park and won 1-0.
I can't believe, Simon, you've left out Ibrox yet.
Well, to be fair, Maury, Ibrox wasn't on his schedule at that particular time. That's why I left it out. In fact, I'm not sure you ever played at Ibrox. Did you, Ziggy? Maybe you did.
Not that year, I didn't. 2 years ago when I was playing for Hamilton, I played at Ibrox twice.
Yeah. But do you remember that 1-0 win against Celtic? Obviously, that's one of the most famous Accies win in history, isn't it?
I know it very well, but at the time we were flying. I think we were top of the league come, September. We were top of the league flying. We just came and we beat Morton 10-2. We then beat Hibs and we just continued on that wave. And then obviously we came to Celtic Park and it was just a feeling of pure optimism, one that I've seldom felt since that, to be honest, when you play such a big team. And they had the likes of, Van Dijk playing, Gary Hooper, I think, was playing. So they had a top team. I think that year, the year after, they beat Barcelona as well. So it was a great day. I was captain of the side, which was something I'll remember, for the rest of my career. So it's one that I certainly look back with great fondness.
Ziggy, you touch on the promotion that you had there with Hamilton. It's very topical in Australia, as we know, with the whole promotion and relegation. Were you relegated at any stage in your career, in your earlier days at Hamilton?
I've never been relegated.
No.
When
no.
So relegated.
But can you talk us through?
I've been relegated regardless of coming bottom.
No, but can you talk us through a little bit about that experience of the promotion winning season and what that meant to the players and the pressure on a game-to-game basis?
I think pressure when you're winning is very different to pressure when you're losing. I think pressure when you're winning is enjoyable pressure. Pressure when you're losing isn't enjoyable at all. And I've been at both spectrums. I've been top of the league with Hamilton Accies for the whole season. And you just go into games confident. And even when you don't play well, you just feel you're going to win the game somehow. When you're at the bottom end, even when you're playing well, you think, we might not win today. And it's very, very different.
So that actually leads us on to probably your experience and time at Central Coast Mariners, and touching on that type of experience, the mentality in terms of trying to turn around a losing culture when you're not getting the results. How difficult was the season with the Mariners?
It's something I've never experienced. I mean, being in a league where there's no relegation, and there's a salary cap and there's all these different avenues that doesn't give players that extra boost. And I'm not trying to question the integrity of players, because I like to think that everyone gives 100% regardless of the reasons why they're on that park, if it's financial or whatever it is. But it's not easy. It really isn't easy, given that there's no relegation. I mean, I've been brought up in a culture where football is your life. It's your livelihood. Every game is, life or death. And I feel in parts you can lose that because there's not that relegation aspect.
Ziggy, I think the Mariners fans appreciated your wholehearted approach to the game, which I guess was epitomised even before the current A-League season started. You got to the semi-finals of the FFA Cup with the Mariners. You lost in the semis. And I think you were quoted as saying that was one of the worst moments of your career. And I remember reading that thinking, actually, that's good to hear, because we don't hear that too often in this country. But you were really gutted that you'd lost that semi-final, because you don't get that many opportunities to play in a cup final, do you?
No, you don't. And, I've yet to be in a cup final of any sort. And especially being my first year. And obviously I know about the history of the Mariners the last couple of years being really kind of doom and gloom, very difficult. And I felt that, I came in, we had that resurgence, new manager, new players. It seemed like, that was the perfect way to start the season. And I think that Adelaide loss actually hurt the boys a lot more throughout the season that you would like to think.
Mate, Ziggy, I don't know you personally, but speaking to you now only for these 5 minutes and listening to, you're a person that's actually driven, which is fantastic to see. And so where does that leave you at Central Coast for the future? Do you have a contract further there? Are you looking to go elsewhere? Because I find it difficult after just listening to you for 5 minutes now. You want to win. You actually want to be a part of something that can win something.
I think it's in my personality and in my nature that I'm a winner. I think Simon touched upon it. I think fans appreciate someone coming here and giving their all and purely motivated by winning games. That's when I'm motivated. And obviously this season we've not won, nearly as many games as I'd hoped to have won this season. But, that happens in football. Anything can happen. I think in terms of myself, I think you just need to keep your eyes open over the next week or so. I've got a great affinity to the Mariners and the fans, and there's some special people at the club as well. And I think it's a project that shows a lot of potential. I've seen what the Mariners were in the past, and it's something that I've got great, belief in can be rectified in the future.
Ziggy, we're jumping a little around chronologically here, but I just want to go back earlier on in your career before we return to the Mariners. You went to Poland to play for Jagiellonia. I think that's the way you pronounce it initially. I know you played for another club in the second tier in Poland as well. What was that experience like, and did it help that you had that cultural background with the Polish side of your family? I presume you spoke a bit of the language as well.
It was really eye-opening. I think every player needs to try different leagues because every league is very different in their own, in their own individualism. I think going to Poland, I was so out of my depth. I had a really strong career in Scotland, played, over 150 games before I was 22 years old in the Premier League. And I wanted to go over to Poland to a top club. And I'll be honest with you, I felt like I was a fish out of water. I was so far behind the level that it was acceptable once I went over there. Not because I wasn't a good enough player, but just the style of play, I wasn't quite ready for it. And I think by progressing there, I became a far better player. And even the tough times where every player is eventually going to have when they go abroad, it's certainly made me a better person as well, not just a player.
Well, this is the beauty of football, isn't it? That you can have those different cultural experiences, and you were offered a similar opportunity actually just before you signed with the Mariners. I know that you were in discussions with Dinamo Bucharest in Romania. Well, what swung it the way of the Mariners? Maybe as it turned out, Ziggy, you should have gone to Bucharest. The way the results finished up.
I wouldn't say. I think the way things have worked out, in terms of where we're placed in the table, obviously isn't what I hope to be. But personally, I feel like I've really progressed as a player, as a person this season, and I've really enjoyed, some aspects of this season.
Ziggy, with the experience that you've now had in Australia, we're obviously looking to develop and improve all the time. You've seen it firsthand. Our players that are coming through our system, the younger players in particular, how do you feel they are travelling, and are they equipped at this stage to be able to maybe make some moves to Europe at a later stage?
Obviously, I can only really speak of the players that I work with day to day. I've seen some fantastic talent, I have to say, especially the likes of Adelaide and other teams where there's some really good, enthusiastic, skillful, talented youth players. But you need to remember, in Europe, there's thousands of them. There really is. The one thing Australia can give to young players that young potential players can't get in Europe is experience. And one thing I would say to young players here is play as many games as you can here, get better, because that's what you have over players in Europe, because there's so many good players in Europe.
But the flip side of that, argument for a lot of the European clubs that are recruiting, they want that Australian player that's younger, that maybe doesn't have that top flight experience, but doesn't have the bad habits. Ziggy, that potentially these Australian players can get into. So it's a difficult one for players, isn't it?
Well, I think that question boils down to the coaching and the mentality and the philosophy they grew up with throughout the youth systems. There's no reason why a 19-year-old in Europe needs to be any better or more equipped to play in Europe than a 19-year-old in Australia. I think there's many positives from the Australian game, but like I was saying, in Europe, it's almost like a different machine. There's young boys coming, better and better every single year, and if young players in Australia want to compete, and if Australia as a federation want to compete with Europe, you need to build on the philosophies that have already shown such success over there.
How did you find the workload here, Ziggy, compared to over there in Scotland? And I mean workload in regards to preparing for a match.
I think it's very different. I mean, last season, for instance, I played 43 games. This season, I played every minute of every game, and I still only played 29 games, including the FFA Cup. So for me, I enjoy training, I enjoy getting better, but for me, there's nothing like a match day. I love playing football matches, and in Europe, Scotland in particular, you don't train as much. When you do train, you train to 100% capacity, and then you play in a game, and it's just over and over again, and you get in a routine. Here, because there's far less games, there's more training, I find it more difficult to get into routine because it's so stop start, and then you're going from two completely different weather situations.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Ziggy, we're going to finish off our chat with a few Twitter questions. We had quite a few for you, and I know you've been online and had a look at them. Let's start with this one, which is actually our question of the week. Congratulations go to Ben Archer. You win a $100 meal voucher for our great sponsor, Outback Steakhouse. So thanks very much for your question. And his question is this: how does the A-League compare to the Polish League? Where would A-League clubs excel in Poland, and what would be a struggle for them? It's a good question.
First of all, do I get an invite? Am I included in the voucher?
Yeah, he might take you. Well, he's got $100 to spare, so
Mate,
maybe
Ziggy,
you get the burger.
You can come with me, mate. I'm there 3 times a week.
Oh, perfect. So, going back to the question, if I'm corrected, is what are the differences between the Polish League and the A-League?
Yeah, and would A-League clubs, I guess, be able to compete in Poland, or what aspects of the game over there would be a struggle for them?
Well, like I said before, the thing about playing in different leagues is there's different styles of football. So I don't think it's fair to say an A-League club went to Poland and wouldn't be able to compete, or an A-League club went to Spain and would be able to compete, because the style of plays are a bit more similar. I think it's all to do with integration. Can an A-League club, in the way that they play, go over to a league like Poland where they're playing in minus 10 degrees and it's extremely fast, and you don't retain possession as much, but there's a lot more chances of the game? I think it all comes down to the coaching and how you would change your philosophy in order to fit in with that league, because there's so many different aspects to every league.
Okay. Nick Gerver, just leading on from that, you mentioned temperatures of minus 10. His question is pretty simple. Winter or summer football? What's best for the A-League?
I mean, I think it's simple. I'm a massive advocate for winter football. I think, personally, I mean, I know I'm quite tanned, and I came from a tropical summer.
Bit like myself.
Back home. But I think, for me, when it came into the summer, I really struggled in terms of, I like to think that I'm a good athlete and my fitness levels are pretty high, but it's a game changer for me. I think the level of football, the style of football just lowers because you can't retain possession, you can't run as far. And I think fans want to see, power and movement. And if you look at Bayern Munich against Barcelona, that's a prime example of what we need to try and aspire to. And that can only happen when the temperatures are lower.
Ziggy, on a lighter note, mate, I've experienced the banter and the type of characters, obviously, in Scottish football. How have you found the banter in an Australian dressing room, and how do the Mariners rate?
I think it's different. I think every individual's different. I've been a part of some fantastic dressing rooms in Scotland, and as I'm sure you can testify, the banter can be quite funny for those who are not the one getting punished. I've had
Ruthless.
had a few good T-shirts up in the wall, some with new holes in them and some without. But I think it's which to your own. I think banter is almost a lot easier when you're doing well in the league. And unfortunately for us this season, it's been a troublesome season for obvious reasons. And because of that, I think it's not fair to really gauge the banter in the dressing room.
Sorry, go on, Maury. Yep.
And sorry, I just wanted to be clear. So in terms of your future, you've enjoyed your time here in Australia, and you still feel as if there's a possibility of extending your stay?
I think there's definitely a possibility of extending my stay. As I said before, I think you just need to keep your eyes out over the next week or two, because I think everything will be concrete, and I think everyone will know what the future brings for myself.
There we go. Ziggy's just
so he basically
little
knows and he's not telling
a
us.
little signpost.
That's a big scoop. A big scoop.
Let's finish off with a banter question, Ziggy. A-League Couch Critics wants to know what your favourite sauce bottle is. Is it tomato, is it barbecue, or the underdog mustard at Central Coast Stadium?
Let's go for the barbecue. There we go.
Barbecue.
Perfect for the Outback Steakhouse.
Oh, despite it never misses an opportunity.
Oh, I could bring you a Master Foods barbecue if I do get that invite.
Well, Ben Archer, the invite is there. If you want to take Ziggy for ribs and steak or whatever, then I'm sure he'll oblige. Ziggy, thanks so much for being.
Hang on. Before he goes, Simon. Before you go, mate, I've got to ask a question. Right, massive year in Scotland, as we know, and I know you've played for Hamilton and Partick, this and all that sort of stuff. But someone either supports Rangers or they support Celtic. I'm not going to ask you who you support, but who's going to win the league this year, because it's a massive year, isn't it?
Celtic will win this season.
Up you go, Ziggy. Cop that one, Maury. Now get off.
Mate, that was a big uppercut, that one, but I disagree.
We'll see if you're right. And, Spider's come out with the big predictions this week anyway. So I think we'll probably forget about that by the time next week comes around. Because apparently PSG are going to be European champions, but we shall see. Ziggy, thanks so much, excuse me, for your time, mate. Really great to see you. And, hopefully we see you again for at least next year, maybe a couple more years here in Australia.
Hope so. Thanks, gents. Appreciate it.
Ziggy. Well done.
Thanks, Ziggy. And that is us for another week of Shim, Spider, and so much more. Thanks to our wonderful sponsors, Streamgate and Outback Steakhouse. We'll be back for more, same time, same place next week. Until then, bye for now.